every year we do our best to make sure that our bees go into the winter strong and healthy. But come spring, we always go out to check on our hives to find out that a couple of them died. So, like clockwork, we get out our checkbook and write a $1, $2, $3, even $1,000 check depending on how many need to be replaced. And the cycle repeats every single year. But what if I told you there is a way that you would never have to buy bees again? That is what these nukes are for. What if in July you took a couple frames out of your strongest hive and placed them in this box with a queen and a frame of food, and once you saw that your queen was laying, you threw on another box for them to build up for the winter as food. So that instead of going into winter with 2 hives, you went in with 4 hives. So that in your spring checks, when you find that one of your colonies died, you could just pull that nuke and plug it into the hive without spending a dime. And say you were lucky and all of those colonies made it, cool. Overwintered nukes are more valuable than spring splits, so now you're making money instead of losing money and everybody's happy. So let me show you how I'm rearranging my frames so that we build up this second box in time for winter. We are back today to put the second story onto all of my nukes now that they have mated queens that are laying. So I'm going to show you how I'm setting up these boxes so that they build up super quick so that they're ready for winter. I've heard some people say it takes them multiple months to build up a nuke, but if you do it right, it doesn't take that long. So I'll show you what I'm doing. So one of the main things I've noticed is you don't want to add a new box or foundation too soon. You want to add it when they're ready for it, but at the same time, you don't want to add it too late so that they end up starting swarm preparations. So some of the main key factors that I look at right before I decide to add on a box is 1, how many frames are filled out? Are there still any empty foundation? If I'm looking at a bigger colony, I'm going to put a box onto this one right here now that they have a queen that is laying. I want to see how many frames are empty. I usually will not add a box if there's any more than 2 frames that are empty. If they've started building out any of them, then that's fine. I will add to their box then. But also, you need to have a laying queen. So I mentioned in one of my last videos, go check it out. Because it kind of links together with everything I'm saying here today. But a colony will not draw out comb. A colony will only really draw out comb for the queen. They'll draw it out if they're on a heavy nectar flow, but it has to be a really heavy flow, like the flow you usually see in May. So this late in the year, I would never expect them to draw out comb for a flow. It's just not going to happen. But they will draw out comb for a queen that needs space and is wanting to lay more eggs. And also if you're feeding, that also helps. So the other thing that I look for is there has to be a queen in there that is laying. And she has to be productive as well. So she has to be laying lots of eggs because that tells me she's wanting to grow the colony. She may be a new queen, so she wants to prove herself. She's going to be laying a lot of eggs. So yeah, that's the other thing that I look for, is to see how productive the queen is. And if she's very productive, then yeah, it's going to be time for a new box, because otherwise they're going to get crowded and they're going to want to swarm. The third thing that I look for is I look to see how much honey is on the tops of the frames. So as you've probably seen many times already, they like to build an arc on the tops of their frames. For their honey, they pretty much encase their entire colony, the entire cluster in honey. That way it's easily accessible for them, and they don't like it in the middle of the brood nest. That's where all the brood's supposed to be reared. So if I get into a colony and I see that they have a lot of honey on the tops of those frames, then they definitely need another box because they're going to be getting what's called honey bound. So that queen is not going to have much room to lay, which will also cause them to swarm. So it's kind of a balance between the two. You can't add them too early, but you can't add them too late either. The reason why I say you can't really add boxes, or you don't want to add boxes too early, is because bees perform better in a smaller space. I don't know if it's maybe just because their end all goal is to be able to swarm. So I don't know if it's just because they see like that goal is getting closer and closer, that they're going to be able to swarm very soon. So that's why they expand and grow so quickly. Versus if you put them in a really big area, then they're like, oh man, that's so much work, it's going to take forever, you know? So that's the main thing that I've always noticed, is that if you don't add boxes too early, your colonies will grow very, very quickly. That is honestly the key to expanding a lot of your hives. Also, when you open up the lid and see this, like, I already know that when I pull this lid off, it is going to be booming with bees. That tells you populations are high. You need to add another box, otherwise they're going to start swarm preparations. Let's see, I'll show you when I get this lid off. Yep, they are ready for another box. And these frames I just moved in here. As you can tell, they look pretty new, so I'll take a look at those to see if they're building those out yet. When you pull out a frame and it looks like this, it's time for a new box. And I'm happy to see I do now have some more drones in these colonies. I was getting really nervous because last week I was not seeing any drones in a lot of my colonies, but I guess a lot of them must have hatched because I've got a lot more now. This was a brand new frame and it's already completely built out. Yep, they are all over on this. So now what I'm looking for in this colony is I'm going to take 2 brood frames that has brood in it, whether it be capped. There probably won't be any capped brood in this colony just because it does have a new queen. So I'm looking for frames that are full of eggs, and I'm going to take those frames and move them up to the second box. And then I'm going to put empty frames right in the center of the brood nest in the lower box because they don't like empty frames in their brood nest. So yeah, I got a lot of they're doing good. They're doing really, really good. But yeah, so when you move that brood up, they will move up with it to take care of it, so that will force them to go into that second box and they will start building it out. Man, I hate mites. I've been seeing some mites on my bees. I don't know if it's just because I'm getting better at looking at the bees and looking and seeing the mites, but it's like they just jump out at me now. I see them all over the place. Oh, and there is my queen up there. She's very light colored. She's kind of like blonde in a way. Look at her, she's beautiful. Hey, darling. Now, I may move her up to the second box. Just because, like I said, they will build out comb for the queen. So if she's in that second box, like, hey guys, I would like to lay some eggs here. They will build out that comb for her very fast. So that's going to be a frame I move up, but I'm going to put it to the side for now while I check out a couple of the other frames. So this frame I just moved in. Actually, I think I moved this over yesterday when I was looking to see if she was even laying eggs. I'm pretty sure this is the frame that was on the outside. And they're already starting to draw out a little bit of the comb on it. So that will be built out pretty quickly. Alright, this one has eggs too, so this one's going to be getting moved up. Alright, I found my 2 frames that are going to be moved up. But since I'm in here, I might as well check out the other ones, see how they're doing. Notice how every single frame I'm taking out of here is absolutely coated with bees. Time for a new box. So what I'm doing in here is I have a honey frame, empty frame. This was a newly built out frame that has a little bit of brood in it. This is the frame I showed you that they started building out. Brood frame, empty frame, brood frame. This one they already started building out, and actually I think this one was completely built out. This is a honey frame, and that's one they're working on right now. So I checkerboarded it out, but the main emphasis is that I put the empty frames in the center of the brood nest. Those are going to build out the fastest because they don't like their brood being separated. And here is how I'm doing the top box. Brood frame with queen on it, empty frame, brood frame. They'll start to build this one out, and they'll start to build out all the ones below it, and then they'll slowly start to expand both ways. Okay, so that leaves me with just one more right there that I need to get another box on to build up for winter. Once I see that queen is laying, I will do that. That's one of the nukes that I bought at the very end of July. Okay, now let's get to the fun part and do these nukes. I will say I really like using these gloves because it's so much easier to grab these frames without pinching bees. It's so hard to do it when you have those big clunky gloves, and honestly, I've had a couple bees try to sting these gloves and they can't sting through them, so at least not yet. So what I'm going to be doing with these nukes is some of these nukes I'm going to be trying out Mike Palmer's method of when you find your nectar frame that is in this hive, so it has to be a frame of uncapped honey, that's nectar. You move it to the center of the hive, but the only way this will work, I think, because the last 2 times I've tried it, is you have to make sure that both frames are completely full of eggs or larvae or brood. It has to be full of some sort of brood, otherwise they're just going to move that nectar to the frame right next to it. But if you put it right in the middle of the brood nest between 2 frames that are full, then they will end up moving it up because that's the only place they have to move it, and that's the easiest place to move it. So they will consume that nectar, use that nectar to build wax on the frame above it, and they will move it up. So on any of the colonies that I see I am able to do this with that have a frame that is built out on both sides of the nectar frame that I put in there, I'm going to try that method. But for the other ones that I don't, and that I'm not going to be able to do that with, what I'm going to end up doing is, so what I did was I did honey frame, empty frame, brood frame, empty frame, and then this was like a pollen bee bread, and then there was like a little bit of brood on it. And then I took one of the brood frames that has fresh eggs on it and actually has some larvae on it as well, and I moved it all the way to the outer side of this nuke. So this is going to be the farthest away from their brood nest. Like I said, they like their brood nest to be in one cluster, so when you put it at the outer edge, my thinking is that they're not going to like that, and they're going to build all of these out as quick as possible. Also, they're going to build out all the ones in there as quick as possible. So we'll see how this goes, and we'll check back in a couple weeks to see if they did what I am thinking. I see a lot of bees with little pollen pants in here, so that is something that makes me very happy to see. Here's the other method I'm going to try out and see how it works. So right now, this is the only frame I'm seeing in here that has brood on it, as well as this one. They're both fully decked out with eggs and larvae. So what I decided to do is I put the brood frame right here. It's going to be on the outside. I would have put it on the very outside, but this is a honey frame, so I'm not going to put it in the middle. So I'm going to put it as far out this way as I possibly can. And then when I put this box on, this is going to be as far out to the opposite side as I can. So you see what I'm doing here? There's a brood frame here, and there's going to be a brood frame over here with 2 empty frames, and then the rest of these empty up here. So since they're kind of spread out like this, they're going to draw out everything else in between. So we'll see how that goes too. Once you understand how bees work, it makes it a lot easier to know what to do when you're putting together your hive, when you're moving around frames. because the bees, they pretty much live off of a few basic rules. I covered a lot of those rules in one of my last videos, so again, go check that out. Just trying not to take too much time explaining the same things over and over again for those who have watched the other video, so that doesn't get too boring for you. But yeah, so if you want to know those rules, go check out that last video. I'll put a link to it. But yeah, so once you understand how the bees actually work and why they do things, it makes it a lot easier to try new things in your yard, just because you know, just based off of the knowledge you have, that it should work. And shoot, might have to switch lids. Yeah, this lid was not made for this one. It is slightly too small. Shoot, maybe this one though, or that one. There we go. Yep. That's the only thing that happens when you build your own stuff. But it is still rewarding to build your own things. I wish I knew how I did this design on my hives, because it looks so cool and artistic to me. I did not plan to do that. I did these all with a spray gun. So, and I just said, you know what, let's just try multiple colors. I feel like that'd look cool, and yep, it turned out looking really cool. But I need to figure out how to do that again, because that looks awesome. Having all of these nukes is there are so many ways I can experiment, but now I can try different ways on all of these to see which one is the quickest and most effective. Something really cool I've noticed about wax foundation is that if it's not perfectly straight, like if it's kind of like bowed a little bit, the bees will actually chew at the edges and straighten it out. Like, this is really cool, the fact that they've been doing this. I've noticed it in a couple of my colonies. Yeah, that is so freaking cool. So I tried out fishing line on some of my wax foundation, and yeah, some of it started to bow. But like I said, some of the bees do actually flatten it out how it's supposed to be. I usually try to make sure that this is touching the top bar when I put it in. So I actually need to fix this one. But yep, fishing line, I don't know, it's all right, I guess. I did watch a video by Mike Palmer talking about comb honey, and that can apply to these frames. And what he said he does is he takes hot beeswax and he glues this wax foundation to the top bar, one, so that it can't do this, and also because he will cut out a strip on the bottom so that the bees can take it and attach it to the bottom bar and make it completely flat. You need a jig in order to do this, but that is something that I am going to try out eventually, especially since I see that this is coming away from the top bar, and it's kind of a pain to have to sit there and try to straighten it out like I'm doing it right now. I could use wax, or not wax, I could use wire. I could just hot wire it in there, but then also, then it leaves that mark in the brood, and there's not going to be any brood there. So, I don't know. Yeah, this is annoying. But it was worth a shot to see how fishing line does. So for this one, I did brood frame with queen on it, empty frame, a little bit of brood with honey on the back side, honey frame. And then I moved a frame up here that is bee bread and honey, and then a frame over here of brood, and the rest in between are empty. So we'll see if that one ends up going really fast too. It's so cool trying so many different ways when you have all these nukes. A good way to experiment. Alright, so we're looking good. I did check two more, that one back there and that one over here, and they now have a laying queen. So now I just have the 4 with the bricks that are sideways that I'm waiting on. 2 of them were queens that I just put in yesterday from that swarm that I caught as it was happening. That was so cool. And then the other 2 kind of looked like, when I was looking at them, that they made their own queen, and also just based off of looking at the cells. So Another way that I could tell this, just to kind of help you guys out a little bit. So when you're looking in your colony and say you put in a queen cell in there, and then you also see other queen cells scattered throughout the colony, and you see that one of the cells that's on the frames looks like a queen came out through the bottom. So you'll just see the opening and it will come straight out. But then you look at the other cells and you see that there's like it was eaten at from the side. That means that the queen stung that queen that was in there. So just based off of looking at that, that tells me that they ended up making their own queen, because she also did that to the cell that I had dropped in there on the tops of the frames. So that's all right though. There's probably something wrong with that cell. Not all of them always hatch, so just something to keep in mind. So now I'm just waiting on 5 more colonies to hurry up and mate. The rest of them all are looking really good. 4 of them are in my nukes. 1 of them are over here in my bigger main hives. So I guess I was a little nervous for no reason, because we're looking pretty good over here. So yeah. I think this guy's trying to get in my car. What you doing, buddy? You do know there's a human standing right next to you, right? Hi. You're a little slow. You can go away, you're fine. Sorry to disturb your peace. It is so crazy how fast we learn in beekeeping and how much the bees teach you. Like yesterday, I learned so much from the bees. Really this entire year, I've like exponentially expanded my knowledge in bees. It's insane, but it's so cool. So thank you guys for coming along on this whole learning path with me. I'm sure you guys are learning a little bit too. At least I hope you can, or at least I hope you are. So that is it for me today. I hope that was helpful, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.